Hello, listener. Today, we look at a player whose quiet leadership defined the 1980s and 1990s Chicago Cubs. Yes, I'm talking about Ryno himself, second baseman Ryne Sandberg. In addition to my producer, Brooke, we have live in the studio today, Uber Cubs fan, James Maumus. Thanks for joining us, James.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
James, not only representing his team, the Chicago Cubs, but specifically, what kind of jersey, James?
Well, it is a Ryne Sandberg jersey, if you want me to.
Number 23, huh? Fantastic. All right. Yes. Perfect. That's what I was really trying to get you to do.
You mean to do? Yeah. Fine.
Yeah. I just, I wanted to make sure you weren't wearing Ernie Banks jersey. That would have ruined the whole thing.
Oh, I've got that one.
Well, James and I know each other for about 10 years from the not so nerdy activity of bar trivia. Occasionally some baseball trivia comes up, right, James?
That's a lot, quite a bit.
James, we commonly hear ask first-time guests, and I appreciate you coming on again, about their journey into baseball. What brought you to this wonderful pastime, and specifically, what made you a Cubs fan?
Well, it all has to do with coming from New Orleans. It all has to do with cable television. We got cable TV when I was in maybe sixth grade, probably around 1983. And, they dig up the street and they put all the cable in for the very first time. And people think you're crazy for buying this new technology that's not going to get on my parent case. But one good thing was that there were two stations that were superstations. And the superstations were WGN from Chicago and WTBS from Atlanta. And obviously they were the official stations of the Cubs and the Braves, respectively. So being from New Orleans, I was certainly not going to be an Atlanta Braves fan. That was not going to happen. I was not going to pull for anybody from Atlanta.
Already had bias against the Falcons there, so you weren't going to jump on the Braves bandwagon.
I'll let you say those F words. I'm not going to say those. But the other option would have been locally to be a Houston Astros fan. And, Nolan Ryan was with the Houston Astros and a couple of other guys were good back then with Astros and they were okay. But the Cubs had day baseball because they had no lights on for another, 5 years or so. So
1988, right?
Yeah. 88, right. So when we would come home from school in the afternoon, usually if the Cubs were at home, they would be on and maybe the fourth or fifth inning and we'd be able to watch the rest of the game. And being able to watch Harry Caray and Steve Stone and all of the cool stuff that happened in the seventh inning stretch, singing and all of that kind of got you into it, especially as a kid. And so that's what got me into the Cubs. And right about 83 was when Ryne Sandberg started with the Cubs. And then 84, of course, was their really good year. And that was the first full season that I got to see them. So it all kind of just worked right into there.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. That's a great story. Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting when someone's not local to a team, how they get into it. Hello, and welcome to Fungos and Fastballs, the podcast of baseball history and trivia. I'm your host, Jerry Dines. Let's jump into today's episode. Well, James, we want to focus today on your favorite player, as you said, Ryne Sandberg, and what you remember of him. And you said you started in the 80s, and as you said, that's around the time he came to the Cubs from
Philadelphia, right? Phillies.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you're going to say it, James, but I mean, we'll go into his slight backstory, like every superhero. Born in Spokane, Washington in 1959. His father was a mortician, which is, I found kind of interesting. And the name Ryne, R-Y-N-E, is named for relief pitcher Ryne Duran. It was with the O's and the Yankees and the A's. He was actually in the 1958 World Series Yanks. Ryne Sandberg's brother, Dell, is named for Philly slugger Dell Innes. So they really liked baseball names, Yeah. Seinfeld fans, you'll know the reference about calling a child Seven in honor of Mickey Mantle.
Right.
I've already had my kids. I can't be experimental with naming, but as you said, he was drafted by the Phillies and got his start there, but soon moved over to the Cubs and again take it from there.
And he was actually going to be a quarterback because he played football he was going to go to Washington State. And then when he got drafted, then he decided that he wasn't going to go to Washington State. So it ended up turning out to be a great deal for him. And if I remember correctly, when he was with the Phillies, they were gonna replace shortstop Larry Boa with him. He was going to be the heir apparent to Larry Boa, and of course that didn't work out. He ended up playing second base. And the funny thing is, in 1983, when he came to the Cubs, he came over to the Cubs with Larry Boa. So he and Larry Boa came to the Cubs together. And I think it was for Ivan De Jesus, I think is the player that they traded for.
That's right. Yeah, not a great trade there.
No, not a great trade.
For the Phillies, yeah.
For the Phillies, right? Although, that year, 83, Ivan De Jesus wins the World Series with the Phillies, right? So I guess in a way, Ryne Sandberg could have said, oh man, if I just would have stuck around one more year, I would have had a World Series. But it's funny that he came over with the guy that he was really going to replace. And Larry Boa had another season with the Cubs, and you had the infield of the two of them in the middle, and we had Leon Durham over at first base, and we had Ron Cey, who had been traded over from the Dodgers, at third. So it was a good infield. It was a I guess a powerful infield, a very good defensive infield, and obviously Ryne Sandberg is primarily known for his defense. So it worked out really well, I think, in the long run, not only for the 83 season, but then definitely when 84 rolled around.
Yeah, you mentioned Ron Cey coming over, and the Dodgers were breaking up that killer infield they had through the 70s. Garvey, a year later, Steve Garvey, first baseman, will go to the Padres. And, of course, Davey Lopes, actually, that year, 82, went to the Oakland A's. Mm-hmm. So, and, rest in peace, Davey Lopes actually just passed away last month.
He ended up becoming a Cub later in the 80s, late 80s.
Mm-hmm. So you had your second baseman there. And, starting in 83, he was tremendous.
Yeah. He was, like I said, he was really known for his defense. And growing up, I only played a little league ball, and I was
a little league,
as opposed
to a big little league or
a
little big league.
Right. I played just a little bit, like 2 years of little league ball, because the fat four-eyed kid was not really going to get too much, especially since I had no idea how to hit. But I was pretty good at first base. I was stocky and I was able to block the ball. So I was a first baseman. So, even before Ryne Sandberg came around, I was a fan of Steve Garvey because he was a first baseman, and I was kind of, watching him play the position. So when I would watch a really good play at second base from Ryne Sandberg and get it over to Leon Durham, I was like, boy, I wish I could play with a guy that could, dive to his right like that and dive to his left and be able to get back up on his feet and fire the ball over. So, yeah. I
played a skosh of Little League myself, James. I don't even know if Brooke knows about those great years, but, I should have stuck with it. I had my own
little baseball card.
Did you really?
Yeah, yeah. Man. We were the Goretti Saints for the. I had a little with me on my one knee getting the ball. Yeah.
I feel robbed. My coach didn't have that. They didn't break out the bucks for that. So
I'll have to find that one. I don't think it was a Topps or a Madonna series.
Yeah. No silver foil.
No, none of that.
Well, you mentioned Sandberg's, in 83. I mean, that was his first Gold Glove season. He won 9 consecutive Gold Gloves from 83 to 91. And at the time, the record was 8. Bill Mazeroski, Frank White, and just a tremendous defensive player. But his breakout season was 84, and I want you to tell us a little more about that, and certainly culminating in the game that put him on the map naturally.
Sure. 84, I would have been in 7th grade at that time. And, they had lost 90 games in 83. So everybody was like, well, we'll see what happens. And the Cubs haven't finished first place in a generation. So it's probably not going to happen. But hey, hope springs eternal in Chicago, which was another reason why I liked Chicago, because I grew up a New Orleans Saints fan, and they were really good at breaking our hearts, and we were used to them losing. So everybody's used to the Cubs losing. So it was kind of a natural marriage for a
You
Saint
had that experience.
fan. Yeah. So when we came in that year and we're thinking, and of course I was, 12. So I wasn't really thinking about, they're going to go to the World Series. But then we started watching the games and, they were winning and they were doing well and they were moving up the standings and they ended up in first place. And, the summer was really exciting and we had a lot of good games and it was just a lot of fun to watch Rick Sutcliffe pitching and Dennis Eckersley pitching. And, you had Bob Dernier and Keith Moreland and Gary Matthews and Jody Davis behind the plate and that infield, and people were hitting and people were playing well. And of course, Sandberg he was almost the first player ever to have 200 hits and then also 20 doubles, triples, and home runs and stolen bases in a season. I think he missed it by like one home run and maybe one triple or something like that. So all of that
impressive season. Yeah, he led the National League in runs and triples that year. I mean, it's tremendous.
Yeah. So all of that was coming together and so and then of course, they end up winning the division, and it's just amazing the fact that they won the division and they won the first two games of the playoffs against San Diego and then promptly lost the next three games and lost the series. So the Padres went to the World Series. And once again, we were brokenhearted, but we were used to that. So, it worked.
We were used to it.
Right.
And we persevered as fans.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Padres. We in fact covered the Padres that year with Tony Gwynn. We mentioned Steve Garvey had gone over that. That was episode 15 of our podcast about Tony Gwynn. They wound up losing to the Tigers, of course, 4-1. And there was the first Cubs playoff game since 1945. Wow. Oh, tremendously. And you mentioned Sandberg was second, right? He batted second.
He batted second behind Bob.
Leadoff. Behind Bob Dernier and Harry Caray christened them, right?
Right, the daily double, right?
The daily double. I love that.
Two of them, you always count on them. So yeah.
So it was a great year, but again, unless you were just getting cable or unless you're in the Chicago region, you may not have heard of Sandberg's tremendous abilities, their skills. And then June 23rd, 1984, what has since been christened the Sandberg Game. And I don't know, you were young, you may not have watched it, but you certainly have remembered it, watched the highlights, James, right?
Well, it was a Saturday game, of course, the 23rd, which is ironic, right? Because his number's 23. Right. But it was a Saturday game. And of course, back then, outside of WGN, you weren't going to see a Cubs game unless it was on the Saturday afternoon game for NBC. So I don't remember the game, again, because I was 12 or 13 years old. But then on top of that, being down south, Saturday afternoon is usually Mid-South Wrestling. So my guess is probably about 2 p.m. was when Mid-South Wrestling was on. So all the kids are outside playing and 2 p.m. hits and everybody walks in to watch wrestling. So I probably didn't watch the game. But then again, looking at the game, I think the Cubs were down a whole bunch of runs early, right? Like 5 or 6 runs early. So if I did start watching the game, I probably was like, oh, I'm not going to watch this. This is not exciting. This is not an exciting game at all. So I think
the Cardinals went up to like a 7-1 lead, then a 9-3 lead. So yeah, we'd forgive fans if they turned it off, right?
Right, turned off, and then they end up missing 2 incredibly great things. First of all was Willie McGee for the Cardinals hitting for the cycle, which is really what the game should have been known for. It's sad that
the Willie McGee game.
Right.
Poor Willie McGee.
Right.
I have sent you a copy of Harry Caray, the call that day. I want you to read it in your best Harry Caray, the longstanding announcer of the Cubs, his style. I want you to do your best. Frank Caliendo, older people, Rich Little. I don't know who the younger impressionists are these days.
Well, they say Will Ferrell does a good one, but Will Ferrell's is pretty lame. But I think I can do an impersonation of Frank Caliendo doing an impersonation of Harry Caray.
You're better than Will Ferrell?
I think I'm better than Will Ferrell. We'll have to see.
In all fairness, Will Ferrell doesn't have time to practice his impersonations because he drums for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That's very true.
They look alike.
Yeah.
Give it. Okay.
I'll do
it a shot.
I'll do it, and then you can always, listeners, viewers, you can always respond and let me know how good or bad it is. All right, let's see. Holy cow! Listen to this crowd. Everybody's going bananas. What would be the odds if I told you that twice Sandberg would hit home runs off Bruce Sutter?
Awesome. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. Should we get him to sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game now?
Nice and loud.
Good job. Good job.
Very good. Very good. So no, great. And you're right. I mean, Harry Caray is right, and James is right. I mean, the closer, for the Cards was Bruce Sutter. He's a Hall of Famer now. He had a league leading 45 saves that season.
Yeah.
And so no one expected,
untouched,
least of all Sandberg, to get 2 home runs off him in crucial time.
Right, this little slight second baseman to come in and down a run, barely in the league. He's probably his third season and second season, because he started in 83. So it'd be second season. And so here he is. He hits a home run to make it 9-9 in the 9th. And then Cubs get down 2 runs in the 10th inning. So now it's 11-9. And he hits a 2-run homer there in the 10th inning. And I mean, that's against Bruce Sutter, who, was locked down. He was locked down. He was Trevor Hoffman before Trevor Hoffman.
Yeah. On NBC, national TV. I love the quote, to put it in perspective, because Chicago is known for its number 23 jersey numbers, as you know. But Bob Costas, who called the game, he points out, Michael Jordan began with the Bulls in the fall of 1984.
That's right.
And he says, Costas says, quote, in the summer of 84, number 23 in Chicago meant Ryne Sandberg.
Absolutely. In fact, I've heard people say, well, Jordan picked 23 because the biggest name at the time was Ryne Sandberg.
That's great. That's great. I love that. Love that story. So after that, the Cubs would make the playoffs again, right? In 89?
Yeah, they make it in 89. And again, it was another one of those heartbreaking things. They took on the Giants and Matt Williams. Yeah. I ended up liking Matt Williams later because I liked the Diamondbacks when I lived in Arizona, right when the Diamondbacks were coming up. So I liked Matt Williams after the Diamondbacks started. But for the eight or 9 years before that, I hated Matt Williams. And it was mainly because of the playoff series in 89.
So, yeah, the Cubs got eliminated by the Giants. The Giants would eventually lose to the A's 4-0 in the Earthquake series.
Right. Right. Yep.
Which we have to do an episode on that, Brooke.
Definitely.
I've got it. I promise.
One of those things it's one of those sports moments where I remember I was a freshman in college, and I was in a computer lab, the guy looking over all the kids with their HP computers and whatnot. And I had brought a teeny little black and white TV so I could watch the first game of the World Series. And then I end up watching the big news of the earthquake. Nice. Yeah. That was pretty great. I mean, I don't know, would the Cubs have done any better against the A's? Probably not. Because the A's had former Cub Dennis Eckersley as their, club. And boy, they were a tough team.
Oh, we got some crossover here. Now we have to do an episode.
Right. Well, we talked about Bruce Sutter, and Bruce Sutter was a Cub too. So there's a lot of Davey Lopes and all these other people. There's a whole lot of crossovers. Mm-hmm.
Well, in 1990, Sandberg would lead the National League in home runs with 40. He was only the third second baseman to hit that mark after Rogers Hornsby and Davey Johnson that hit 42. And as I said, I think in addition to that, I mean, that's a pop there. He had not hit that kind of home run power earlier, but his defense was tremendous. The no error streak, right? I mean, that was 89-90, James?
Right, 120 something.
123. Look at that.
23.
Number 23, the 23rd for the Sandberg game. Look at this. It's all coming together.
So,
yeah, I mean, for a second baseman, a record 123 games without an error, breaking Joe Morgan's record. And then you might have been watching wrestling back for the Sandberg game, but did you tune into the Home Run Derby in 1990, James?
Oh, right. At home. I mean, nobody is going to nobody is going to win that other than Ryne Sandberg in Wrigley Field. Because, he knew he knew, where's the wind blowing, because if the wind's blowing to right, and I know where to hit it, and the wind's swirling, and who knows, man, I don't remember if the wind was swirling that night or whatever, but he just happened to know where everything was. And yeah, winning the home run derby at home is the best of all things, I think.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So he continued, I think, I'm going to borrow from Costas again. I mean, Costas called him a flawless more than a spectacular player. And in most cases, that's it. He was a workman. He fit the Chicago personality a lot. People loved him, just a quiet confidence, but didn't do so great, as we get into the 90s, and he decides to retire in 1994. He was hitting 238. That was his career low. And that's not the end of him, right?
No, he ended up coming back. Now, I'll be in full honesty. In 94 was the strike year. And that was the year that we lost the World Series to the strike. And I got super bitter about that.
I thought the Expos lost the World Series to the strike.
Well, the Expos did lose the World Series to the strike. That's very true.
There's a debate. They're right.
And Tony Gwynn, lost his chance at 400 to
Tony Gwynn again. Yes, 6 degrees of fungos and fastballs.
Yes. So I was really, really bitter, and I swore baseball off after that. So like 95 through the time I moved to Arizona in 95, and probably until the Diamondbacks were born, I didn't follow baseball much at all. So like 94 to 98, I wasn't watching any of it, and I knew that he had retired, but I knew that he came back, a couple of years later to kind of finish up. So.
Yeah, and finally retired in 1997. So you weren't alone, James, in your moving away from baseball with that 94 strike, huh?
Yeah. No, I certainly was. And a lot of my friends were like, not even, watching the standings anymore. My brother was one of those original fantasy baseball guys where they would look in the newspaper every day and write down their own stats. And he wasn't even participating in drafts those years. So, yeah, it was a tough time.
So Sandberg retires, and his number 23 is retired by the Cubs, of course. And James, man, we're really putting James through the ringer today. Next, see, James is a trivia host, so it's good for me to flip the tables on him.
Got to work the brain.
And hopefully he won't complain to me like I complained to him about the question.
Like that, yeah.
Well, James, your quote halftime trivia. The Cubs have retired 7 total numbers. We mentioned Sandberg, of course, Jackie Robinson, like every team has retired. So can you name the other 5?
Okay.
You don't have to name the numbers. Just
I'm looking at the flags on the flagpoles at Wrigley Field, and I can envision. I can
in your mind.
In my mind, yes.
Does that happen often? Yes.
I can envision Ernie Banks as number 14.
Ernie Banks.
I can envision Billy Williams as number 20, I think.
Ding, ding, ding. 26.
26. Okay, 26.
Yeah.
Greg Maddux is 31.
Greg Maddux, very true. Greg Maddux, I would not have gotten Greg Maddux, of course, soon after went to the Braves, in the 90s, but it retired there. But yes, Greg Maddux, very good. So
Two more. Would Ron Santo be on there?
Ron Santo, number 10. Very good. Oh.
And I was going to say number 10, so that's good. I was only off on one number, 26.
So I would have thought James would have gotten this next one after Ernie Banks, but big name.
Wow. Andre Dawson?
Long name.
Oh, a long name. Oh, Ferguson Jenkins.
Ferguson Jenkins. Excellent. Well done. Kudos to you, sir.
Bravo.
That will be a halftime question probably next week.
That will be. Oh, we're going to go there. And Ryne Sandberg was elected to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown in 2005. I think it was the 3rd ballot where he got 76.2%. You have to get over 75. And I love this line from his Hall of Fame speech. He says, the name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back. And I think that just fits him.
Absolutely.
Have you seen his statue in Gallagher Way outside Wrigley Field?
Well, they just unveiled that statue 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2024.
We were going to go that weekend, and unfortunately, some tragic stuff happened in the family, and we weren't able to go that weekend. But I'm still planning on going back this season. I've already got a couple of couple of ideas is when I can get out to Wrigley. It's been way too long. I think it's probably been 7 or 8 years since I've been out to Wrigley. So I've got a friend who actually is passing through Chicago. And I said, well, if you've never been to a Cubs game, then let me be the one to take you to your first Cubs game. So I'm really trying to work that out. So we'll see if that happens.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, they unveiled it on the 40th anniversary of the Sandberg Game, so June 23rd, 2024. And
I watched it on television, or it's marquee now. It's not at GN, but yeah, I watched the whole thing.
And those statues joined Santo, Banks, Williams, and Jenkins there, the statues. So Sandberg would manage for a little while, wound up managing his original team, the Phillies, from 2013 and 2015. And then sadly developed metastatic prostate cancer and seemed like he was beating it. He was deemed cancer-free, but then it came back and just passed away last year, last July at age 65. So, I mean, just far too young.
But we were glad that he was there for the unveiling of the statue. That
Yes.
was really good. And because I think, if I remember correctly, it wasn't long before the unveiling that he had announced that it had come back. So I think it was probably about a year after he announced it that he passed. Yeah.
And really the next, just a few days later, every Cubs player, of course, wore number 23. So
that was great.
So
that was
moving.
That was a very emotional game for everybody. I was wearing this one.
Yeah. And, these biographies are always great, but unfortunately, because we deal with older players or players who passed on, I never like to end on that final note. But so, James, any other great memories, thoughts about this player, your favorite?
Well, something I didn't mention earlier about when we were kids and coming home from school and watching the Cubs on television every day is that, my mom would always get on our case to do our homework first before we would watch any television or anything else. Well, we also found out that she had a huge crush on Ryne Sandberg. She thought he was gorgeous. So whenever we would come home,
he was a cutie patootie.
He
certainly was. There will be many photos of him on this video.
So when we would get home, we'd say, all right, we're going to watch the Cubs game. She goes, no, you're not. You got homework to do. I said, yeah, but Ryne Sandberg's batting second. It was like, okay, we'll watch it. So she was.
Well, I guess this time.
Yeah, that's right. We'll watch it this time. It just became a habit after that. So.
Well, thank you, James, so much for joining us. With just another tremendous player, a Hall of Famer who meant so much to Cubs fans and really baseball fans. And thanks always to Brooke. And a shout out to Rick from the Hot Nuts Trivia team where James hosts trivia, because he assured me he'd be listening. And we're always happy you're listening. Hope you'll keep listening. Don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform. Heading back to the locker room, this is Jerry Dines with Fungos and Fastballs.